The vortex, the holy grail of rocket stoves, the creme de la creme, the vanilla essence of rocketiness. Something that I've never really tried to actually do well. It's always been an afterthought. Most of my projects are sort of, oh, you know, look at that, I found something in the bin that looks like it could be turned into a some kind of Bernie thingy, and I reckon I'll do that. But today I'm going to try to really achieve a healthy, happy vortex. And to do that, I'm going to do something very unusual, and that's apply some scientific stuff to the build. Anyway. That there. Alrighty. Hold this puppy in front of you. Okay, that didn't work. Hey Google, what direction does the water swirl in the southern hemisphere?
Counterclockwise. Here's a summary from The Guardian. Objects not attached to the surface of the Earth will create a vortex going the opposite direction. It moves clockwise. It moves counterclockwise.
Well, there you go. Nice. Just remember, your cuts are only ever going to be as good as the line that you've scribed. And so, whenever possible, I like to use a steel scribe when working with metal, because if I can split that line, then I'm doing pretty good. Where with a pencil or a Sharpie or something with a thicker line, I do find that my cuts aren't as accurate. And so something just to keep in mind, that if you don't have to spend a lot of money on a good scribe or anything. This is a small computer Phillips screwdriver, like one of those little fiddly ones. And it's probably been the best scriber I've ever had, to be honest. Anyway. Yep. Nice fine lines. You'll end up cutting a much straighter line. Blimey. Oh. Hang on. What's going on here? That's going to create a clockwise vortex. Pardon me. Okay. It's all good. We're back in the southern hemisphere again now. That was a close one. Okay, as I cut this out, I want to keep part of this and swing it out to match up with this, so it's sort of a nice sweeping, what would you call it? Join, transition. I want the transition to be smooth. Now, to work out how much I need to keep, I'm going to use my dividers and bring it out to about there, and bring that in and scrub a mark. One of those 6 marks is the one I want to keep, so right there. Wow. It's going to come around, and hopefully we're going to get lots of good swirly swirlies. I've got a heap of these 6013s and 6012 2.4mm rods. And they need using up. Once you open a packet and sort of the flux begins to absorb the moisture in the atmosphere, and it just makes them, you can still weld with them, but they just become a little bit more tricky to use. So if you've got an old packet of welding rods sitting around that's you opened 15 years ago, before you start that next welding job, maybe consider throwing those out and buying a new packet. Just a friendly service announcement. It's amazing what 5 amps does. Just held a slightly tighter arc length, dropped at 5 amps, and the slag just falls off. Except for the end there. Oh. That's a keeper. It's always the last weld that looks the best, isn't it? Makes you want to go grind off the old ones and do them again. Anyway. This is a piece of the riser that I cut out earlier on. I really didn't need to cut it out in retrospect, but that's hindsight for you, isn't it? So I'm welding it back in, but I'm welding it in on a little bit of an angle so that there's slightly more room at the bottom and less room at the top. That's sort of in a roundabout way creating a slight cone shape and reducing the diameter at the bottom, and hopefully making a really nice, helping create a really nice vortex. This is just a bit of 12mm plate I've had lying around forever, and it's just going to make a nice base. My hammer's a bit blunt. So what I want to do is introduce a secondary source of air that's preheated right here into the swirl chamber, into the vortex generator. So the thing with adding that air is you want it close enough to the heat source that there's still enough heat that the extra oxygen you're adding creates that secondary burn. If you add the air in too far away from the heat source, we know that the fire triangle, which is apparently outdated, it's a fire square now. But basically, yeah, you need fire, heat, and fire. You need air, you need fuel, and you need heat. Oxygen, fuel, heat. Wow. You want the air to be introduced into the system at where there's still ample heat, so that you get a good solid secondary burn. So that's going to go on there. I'm going to stitch it on, and the more I weld that, the better surface contact it's going to have, and the better the heat's going to transfer through into it. And in the end, we'll just cap it off and drill a couple of holes here, right at the start of the vortex generator, to try to, or maybe I should say right before the vortex generator. I don't want to mess with the vortex too much. If I can introduce it just before it, that extra injection of good unburnt oxygen should really help turbocharge the whole system. So I'm going to come back from the start of the vortex generator, 30mm. It's just a number that's in my head. Okay, let's go 20 inches, 50mm. Oh, they're sort of similar. and clamp that. And it ain't sliding off. It's totally dodgy, I know, but it's but it works. Bit of a gap there. We'll deal with that. Break that off. Done. Bit ugly. Bit ugly. It's all right. Grind will fix it. It's airtight, that's the main thing. Oh boy. Oopie. Oh, lift with your back.
I'm going to spare you all this grinding and welding because this video is already getting fairly long. We're just going to keep skipping on ahead to the meat and potatoes of the build.
80. Rightio.
I just want to point out the fact that I am aware that my grinder is slowly eating itself, and I do fix the guard later on. It's just rubbing against the disc.
Okay. So because I need this part to fit around this larger piece of tube, which will become the pellet hopper, and I want to be able to remove it so that if I want to use normal wood, I can just pull it out and it'll be sort of like a short little, just a retainer, and I can jam sticks down into the stove. But what I'm getting at is I need to weld this in position so that it holds its shape, and then I'll probably flog it with a hammer until it's a nice fit. But I don't want the weld to penetrate through into this, otherwise I will have welded this ring on the collar, if you like, onto that, and well, it's not removable then, is it? So there's a few tricks you can do with your welder if it has pulse to be able to minimize the penetration. And thanks to Jody over at Welding Tips and Tricks, I know this. That man has taught me more about welding than anybody else I know. I've been watching him for years, and he is a big part of the reason I can weld the way I weld.
58 amps is the maximum current, 10 amps is the base current, 33 pulses a second, and 33% background current. And what that is going to allow me to do is weld my part together without the weld penetrating deeply down into the pellet holder. And so I'll be able to separate the two parts once I've welded it together. And hopefully this will work. Okay, this really strange buzzing noise you're hearing, it sounds like I'm almost welding an AC, but it's the pulse. Jumping between 58 amps and 10 amps. And I did bump it up to about 65 later on, it just wasn't quite enough to melt that thicker filler wire. Definitely not Instagram welds, but it's totally, I've achieved what I needed to achieve in sticking the collar together without sticking it to the pellet hopper. And I'll clean it up with a flapper.
That is a very tight fit. I was sort of going for airtight. Maybe not that tight, but I think it'll wear in with use. One battery and 6 days later we have full holes. All right. Alrighty, let's run with that. But an undefiled tungsten would be a good start. Both of those are defiled. I'll be back. Okay, this is going to be the pellet hopper. What I need is a means of getting air to the front half of the pellet hopper, the part that's going to be the furthest into the stove. So this half is going to get plenty of air because of the air naturally flowing in there, but the back half is going to be a bit of a dead spot. Some figures I've heard thrown around is you want 30% air getting in there. Now I have no means or way of actually accurately working out what 30% is. That's just a bit above my pay grade. But I have seen other blokes get around this by welding RHS inside here that goes all the way down, and all it does is take air down to the front half of the burn chamber. Now I don't have any RHS that is the right size or stainless. I want it to be stainless steel, so I'm going to make a piece out of this sheet here and go over to the other shed where the folder is and fold it up. You got a chook, did you? Wow. Yeah. Michelle, go back to the other shed.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll pin ya.
We'll pin you.
Say who's boss.
Yeah, I don't know what she's doing.
What?
update? Blasted chook. We should fire her. We should. In the Weber. So, all the way across. Measure the distance. It's 32. Divide 32 in half. So that's half of 30 is 15. Half of 2 is 1. So that's 16. Nice. Right, Erin, I'm going to do some welding, so you're going to have to depart.
Maybe Bobby might.
Well, Barbie can stay here as long as she doesn't look at the welding arc.
Yeah. I'll make her look away.
Okay, make her look away. Thank you.
Look away.
Okay, I'm just making a really quick jig to bend up all of these so they're all going to do the same. I wasn't even sure if I was going to show this, but I thought you might feel cheated if I didn't show you, so this is how I make a really quick, rough as guts jig. I've just got a bit of steel that I can easily clamp to the bench. I've just tack welded this washer onto the side, and I've made up my first piece. This is what I want to copy for the basket. And I'm just going to line it up there. Now for the first fold, I'm just going to copy that radius. So I need to put a pin right there in that corner. Now I'm going to cut that off. Okay, you can see the pencil mark of the shape I'm going for, and you might just think you could just weld a pin right there and that'd be your jig. But if you did that, you would not end up with the right shape because you always have to go past the point that you need. Now, to achieve this, I need to bend this in one hit and try and take note of where it stops to get to that. Because even if I have to do this in 2 hits, at that point I'm work hardening the material and it just won't be the same. I want to get this fair shot. So this might take a few attempts, but looks like actually I'll need to put another support there. So let's do that real quick. Alrighty, now that that's supported, so again 1 hit. I'm going to mark that now because I reckon that'll spring back. Okay, way too far. Okay, let's go again. So mark there. Oh, getting closer. Oh. It's getting very close. Let's go again. I think I'll call that. So that's my final mark there. And that's where it wants to be. So if I transfer that down to there. Right, take this over to the drill press. That's the final shape. All right, so we now have that one, which, look at that, brings it up pretty good. Now what I want to do is keep going around. That's pretty close. This is a little backstop, it'll be adjustable. Okay, that's with the locking nut. I can put 2 on there if it needs it. So that will allow me to adjust the length of filler rod that I push through this jig. Let's do that again. Now I've already done all this off camera, but I'm just going to show you the process so you know how. You want the gap in your basket to be just a fraggle smaller than, so it's 6.52. What does this guy measure? Well, it's 5.84, but that'd be like a 6mm drill bit. Yeah, so that's just slightly larger at 6.52, and I'm making the gaps 5.82. Well, that's exactly what it'll be, but we'll just call it 6mm for simplicity. Now the old razor here has a spot function, that guy. So I'm going to use that to weld these bits of wire. I'm just going to hold that there. I've already primed the TIG torch to make sure there's, because it's the first time you turn it on in the day, it's a good idea just to click it. That means any oxygen that's in the line's out, and you're not going to get a burst of oxygen when you should be getting a burst of argon. That's pretty bad. And we'll just, I'm going to favour the heat on the thicker material and hope that it just runs across. Oh wow, that's a big spot. That just blew it to bits. Can we slow down the spot? 0. Do a test pop on that. Okay, that's what I was after. So the spot function has a few extra little features that I wasn't aware of. That sort of means this one's toast. It'll be shorter than the rest. That's all right. I have a jig. Oh, that worked. Nice. Yeah, okay. Good. Not perfect, but very close. Very close to what I'm chasing. That's probably good enough for what we need. Now I'm just going to do a test fit. So with this design, the basket is not going to be attached to this wall, but it's going to rely on it to keep the pellets in the basket. So it comes all the way out, and the gap should be roughly between the wall and the edge of the basket is about the same, maybe a little bit more, but it should be okay, as all these gaps here. Okay, that little hook, I'm going to cut that off, but that's just going to stop this from rolling away. Just put a little bend in it. Nice. Who? That spot function is brilliant.
Normally I'd use my little gas burner to light the pellets, but it's out of gas. So the little Methvo stove will have to do the trick. In fact, it did a pretty good job in retrospect. I might have to make something that sort of more permanently fits in there that I can just pour a bit of spirits into and light up.
All right. Now we're still only running the Methvo burner, but I just wanted to demonstrate what this little secondary air intake is doing. Okay, the basket is seated all the way to the bottom, and those pellets are finally starting to go, which is good because this metho burner is just about empty. Putting out some heat. Oh, that's hot. Well, this video has been going on for a very long time, and my voice is a bit funny because I've just had a cold and I'm recovering from it. So I think we'll call this part one. Basically, I'm waiting on some parts to arrive from the UK. I've ordered some glass that will go on a window here so I can really see what's going on inside the vortex. Particularly, I want to be able to see what's going on so I can tune this secondary air intake a bit better. I don't think it's working at all, actually. I struck a match and blew it out so there was a bit of smoke and put it in front of the opening there, and it didn't seem to draw smoke in at all, not compared to the air intake in the pellet hopper. That was drawing air even just when the metho burner was running. So yeah, I've got to wait for that stuff to get here. And this video has already gone on for a long time. I've done a lot more talking in this video. I'd like to hear your feedback as far as whether you like this sort of new style, this format. I can't please everyone. Some people tell me to shut up and I talk too much, and other people ask me to talk more. I have invested in a new microphone. That's this fella here. Hopefully the sound quality is a lot better on this video, so I'm sort of more confident to talk, and yeah, you might hear a lot more rambling and the oddities that come out of my mouth as my brain is trying to work out what on earth I'm going to do. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. The pellets are feeding nicely too.